The bride was abandoned by her husband as soon as the ceremony ended. When she got home, she was shocked by what she saw in the drawer. The echo of John's "I do" still resonated in the church when the unthinkable happened. In one moment, he was there, his brown eyes fixed on Mary, a nervous smile playing on his lips. In the next, there was only emptiness. Mary blinked as confused. The bouquet of white roses trembled in her gloved hands. "John!" Her voice, a trembling whisper, broke the stunned silence that had engulfed the congregation. Minutes earlier, everything seemed perfect. Mary vividly remembered the moment she walked into the church. The scent of lilies and freshly lit candles filled the air, mingling with the palpable anticipation of the guests. Her heart raced, a mix of nerves and pure happiness. Now, that same heart seemed to have stopped. "John!" This time, Mary's shout echoed off the walls of the old church, snapping everyone out of their collective stupor. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Charles, John's brother and best man, was the first to act. "He must have gotten sick. I'll look for him." His words sounded hollow even to his own ears as he ran toward the sacristy. The guests began to murmur, their voices growing in volume and urgency. Wild theories started circulating. "He ran off with his ex," someone whispered. "Tanadu, he must have been kidnapped," another retorted. Mary remained motionless at the altar, her white dress gleaming under the light streaming through the stained glass. Her eyes, wide and incredulous, were fixed on the side door through which John had disappeared. The reality of the situation had yet to fully sink in. "My dear," her father's voice, usually strong and confident, trembled slightly. "Let's get out of here. We need to—" "No!" Mary interrupted him, her voice surprisingly firm. "He will come back. He has to come back." The minutes dragged on like hours. Charles returned, his face pale and his hands empty. "He's nowhere to be found." "His car, it's gone." It was then that Anna, Mary's best friend and maid of honor, noticed something. "Mary, look, in the Bible." A small piece of paper protruded from the sacred book on the altar. With trembling fingers, Mary picked it up. John's hurried handwriting was unmistakable. "Forgive me, Mary. It's for your own good." "Don't look for me." Mary's world collapsed in that instant. The words danced before her eyes, refusing to make sense. How could abandoning her be for her own good? "This is outrageous." John's father finally found his voice, his face red with anger and shame. "My son wouldn't do this. He must be in danger." "Or maybe," Mary's mother interjected, her voice sharp as a blade, "your son isn't the man we thought he was." The tension in the church was palpable, threatening to explode at any moment. Families who moments before were smiling and embracing now eyed each other with suspicion and veiled accusations. It was at that moment that Mary made a decision. With a calmness that surprised everyone, including herself, she stepped down from the altar. "I'm going home," she announced, her voice echoing in the now silent church. "But, dear," her mother protested, "you can't be alone now. We'll go with you." "No." The firmness in Mary's voice left no room for argument. "I need to be alone. Please apologize to the guests for me." And so, under the stunned gaze of friends and family, Mary walked down the aisle of the church, alone. The sound of her heels on the marble floor echoed like a cruel reminder of the wedding march that should have been. Outside, the afternoon sun seemed to mock the darkness that had settled in her heart. Mary ignored the pitying looks and whispers of passers-by as she walked, still in her wedding dress, toward the house that was supposed to be the start of her new life. Each step was an effort, each breath, a struggle against the tears that threatened to fall. Questions hammered in her mind. Why would John do this? What could be so terrible that it made him abandon her at the altar? Finally, Mary reached her front door. With trembling hands, she turned the key in the lock. The silence that greeted her was deafening. Without the laughter and joy she had imagined for this moment, the house felt cold and strange. Almost instinctively, Mary headed to the bedroom. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for what? A sign, an explanation, anything that would make sense of this nightmare. Then she noticed it. The bedside drawer, usually closed, was slightly ajar. Mary's heart raced. With hesitant steps, she approached, extending a trembling hand. As she opened the drawer fully, Mary gasped. What she saw there would forever change her understanding of John, their marriage, and her own destiny. The mystery in the drawer was about to be revealed, and with it, a truth that Mary could never have imagined. Mary stared at the contents of the drawer, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it echoing in the sepulchral silence of the room. Where John's socks and underwear should have been, there was a jumble of papers, some crumpled, others meticulously folded. With trembling hands, she picked up the first document. It was a bank statement, but not one she recognized. The name at the top read John Smith, but the balance? Mary blinked several times, certain her eyes were deceiving her. The red number indicated a debt of over $1 million. Impossible, she murmured to herself, letting the paper fall to the floor. The next document was even more intriguing, a letter from a lawyer dated 3 weeks ago. Dear Mr. Smith, I regret to inform you that your creditors are unwilling to extend the deadline. If payment is not made by the end of the month, they will take drastic measures. I strongly suggest you consider the options we discussed at our last meeting. Sincerely, Mr. Richard Johnson. Mary felt the blood freeze in her veins. Drastic measures. What options? Her John, always so responsible and careful with money. How could he be involved in something like this? More papers emerged from the drawer. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts, documents from companies Mary had never heard of, and even what appeared to be a fake passport with John's photo, but under another name. At the bottom of the drawer, an envelope caught her attention. Unlike the other documents, this one seemed new, as if it had been placed there recently. With her heart in her throat, Mary opened it. My beloved Mary, if you are reading this, it means I have done the unthinkable. I left you on the day that should have been the happiest of our lives. Believe me when I say my heart is broken. There are so many things I want to tell you, so many explanations you deserve. But the truth is, the less you know, the safer you are. I have made mistakes, Mary. Terrible mistakes that now threaten not only me, but everyone I love. Leaving you is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's the only way to keep you safe. Please, do not try to find me. Do not trust anyone, not even our family. Remember that I love you more than anything in this world. Always yours, John. The tears Mary had held back for so long finally overflowed. They fell onto the letter, smudging the ink in places. Her mind spun, trying to process everything she had discovered. John was not just a man in debt. He was involved in something much bigger and far more dangerous. But what? And why had he never shared this with her? A sudden noise in the living room made her jump. Quickly, Mary gathered all the documents, stuffing them back into the drawer. Her heart pounded as she cautiously approached the bedroom door. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling slightly. There was someone there. Silence. Gathering all her courage, Mary moved down the hallway. The living room was empty, but the window facing the street was open, the curtains swaying gently in the breeze. She was sure she had closed all the windows. A shiver ran down her spine. John's words echoed in her mind. Do not trust anyone. Was someone watching the house? Observing her movements, Mary ran back to the bedroom, locking the door behind her. Her mind raced frantically. What should she do now? Tell the police. But what if that put John in danger? Talk to his parents, to her own father? No. John's letter was clear. She couldn't trust anyone. Sitting on the edge of the bed, still dressed as a bride, Mary tried to organize her thoughts. One thing was certain. She needed answers. And to get them, she would have to delve deeper into John's secret world. Her eyes returned to the drawer. Those documents were just the tip of the iceberg, she was sure. Somewhere, hidden among numbers and unfamiliar names, were the answers she sought. With a determination that surprised even herself, Mary stood up. First, she needed to get rid of the wedding dress. Then, she would dive headfirst into John's secrets. As she unbuttoned the dress, Mary made a silent promise. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She would find John and understand why he did what he did. But above all, She would protect herself. Because if there was one thing Mary now knew for sure, it was that she was alone in a dangerous game she barely understood. Outside, hidden in the shadows of a parked car, a figure watched the house intently. His eyes never left the bedroom window where Mary was. With a heavy sigh, he picked up his phone. "She found the documents," he said simply before hanging up. The game, indeed, was just beginning. The rising sun found Mary sitting on the bedroom floor, surrounded by a mess of papers. Her eyes, red and swollen from crying and reading, scanned the documents scattered around her. The wedding dress lay abandoned in a corner, a painful reminder of the previous day. After hours poring over John's papers, Mary began to piece together the puzzle, and the picture that emerged was frightening. John, her John, apparently led a double life. On one side, the dedicated civil engineer she knew and loved. On the other, a man involved in shady business deals, with astronomical debts and dangerous connections. One document in particular caught her attention, a partnership contract for a company called Horizon Enterprises. John's name appeared alongside two others, Richard Johnson and William Brown. Mary frowned. She had never heard John mention these names or this company. Intrigued, she turned on her laptop and began to search. Horizon Enterprises seemed to be a shell company. No website, no physical address, just a registration number and a history of suspicious transactions. "What did you get yourself into, John?" Mary murmured to herself, massaging her temples. Her phone rang, making her jump. It was Anna, her best friend and maid of honor. "Mary, my God, I'm so worried. How are you?" Mary hesitated. Anna's voice sounded genuinely concerned, but John's words echoed in her mind. "Do not trust anyone." "I'm dealing with it," she replied cautiously. "Listen," Anna continued, "I know this must be hard, but there's something you need to know. Last night, after you left, I overheard Charles and John's brother making a strange call. He seemed nervous, saying something about her finding the documents. Mary, I think he was talking about you." Mary's heart raced, so she had been right. Someone had been watching the house last night. "Anna, thank you for telling me. Look, I need to go now. I'll call you later, okay?" As soon as she hung up, Mary ran to the windows, closing all the curtains. Her mind raced. If Charles was involved, who else could be? John's entire family, their mutual friends. Returning to the documents, Mary focused on the bank transactions. Large sums of money moving in and out of offshore accounts. Dates and amounts that didn't make sense for an engineer's salary. A pattern began to emerge. Every 3 months, a significant amount was deposited into an account in the Cayman Islands. The last deposit had been made just a week before the wedding. "That's it," Mary murmured. He was gathering money to flee. But flee from what? Or from whom? A new document caught her attention. It was a printed email dated 2 days before the wedding. "Jay, the deadline has passed. Either you deliver what you owe by tomorrow, or your fiancé pays the price. Do not test our patience. Boo B." Mary felt a chill run down her spine. Bun B, William Brown, one of the partners in Horizon Enterprises. It wasn't just a matter of debts. John was being threatened. Suddenly, everything made sense. John didn't leave out of cowardice or because he didn't love her. He fled to protect her. With trembling hands, Mary picked up her phone again. She needed to talk to someone, share what she had discovered. But who? The police? No, without concrete evidence, they might not believe her. Besides, what if there were corrupt officers involved? Her parents? No. They would probably insist she forget John and move on. They wouldn't understand. Charles? A shiver ran down her spine at the thought of her brother-in-law. If he was really watching the house, talking to him could be dangerous. Then Mary had an idea. Richard Johnson, the lawyer mentioned in the letter. He seemed to be helping John. Maybe he could provide some answers. Determined, Mary began to search for information about the lawyer. After a few searches, she found the address of his office. It wasn't far. Quickly, she got up and started to get dressed. She needed to act fast before anyone realized what she was doing. As she prepared, Mary couldn't help but notice her reflection in the mirror. Deep dark circles marked her face, and her eyes, usually bright, were dull with worry. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. "I'll find you, John," she promised her reflection, "and I'll uncover the truth no matter the cost." With one last look at the documents scattered around the room, Mary made a decision. She couldn't leave them there, but she also couldn't take them with her. What if someone broke into the house while she was gone? Thinking quickly, Mary grabbed her old teenage diary from the shelf. Carefully, she removed the written pages and began to insert the most important documents between the covers of the diary. The rest, she hid in a shoebox at the back of the closet. Satisfied with her makeshift hiding place, Mary grabbed her bag and the diary. She was about to leave when she hesitated. She returned to the bedroom and, after a moment of reflection, picked up John's wedding ring that had been left on the dresser. As she slid the ring onto a chain and placed it around her neck, Mary made a silent promise. She would uncover the truth, not just for herself but for John and the love they shared. With one last look at the apartment that should have been the start of her married life, Mary left, locking the door behind her. What she didn't know was that her movements were being closely watched. Across the street, a man spoke quietly into his phone. "She's leaving. Should I follow her?" The response came quickly and clearly. "Yes, don't lose sight of her. And remember, not a scratch on her. The boss wants her alive." The man hung up the phone and started the car, preparing to follow Mary on her quest for the truth. The game was just beginning, and the stakes were higher than she could imagine. Mary left the building, clutching the diary to her chest. The morning sun, usually welcoming, felt relentless, exposing her. Her eyes scanned the street, looking for familiar faces or suspicious cars. Nothing obvious. But the feeling of being watched didn't leave her. She decided to take a taxi instead of using her own car. Less traceable, she thought. On the way to Richard Johnson's office, her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Each new thought brought more questions than answers. The taxi stopped in front of a commercial building in the city center. Mary paid the fare and got out, still vigilant. The lobby was quiet, with only a lone receptionist behind a marble counter. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her tone polite but disinterested. "Yes, I'm looking for Mr. Richard Johnson's office." The receptionist frowned. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Johnson is not accepting new clients at the moment." Mary felt panic rising. She couldn't leave empty-handed. "Please, it's urgent. Tell him it's about John Smith. He'll understand." Something in Mary's desperate tone must have touched the receptionist. With a sigh, she picked up the phone. After a brief conversation, she nodded to Mary. 12th floor. "He'll see you." The elevator seemed to take forever. When the doors finally opened, Mary found herself in a silent hallway. Ahead of her, a wooden door with a brass plaque. "Mr. Richard Johnson, attorney." She knocked, her hands trembling slightly. "Come in," a deep voice responded. The office was exactly as Mary imagined a high-profile lawyer's office would be. Bookshelves lined the walls. The smell of leather and old paper filled the air. Behind an imposing desk sat a middle-aged man, grey at the temples and with piercing eyes behind thin-framed glasses. "Ms. Pam Brown, I presume," Mr. Johnson said, indicating the chair in front of him. "I must confess, I expected your visit, though not so soon." Mary sat down, her heart pounding. "You knew I would come? How?" The lawyer sighed, taking off his glasses and rubbing the bridge of his nose. "John warned me that you might show up. He told me about the wedding." "So you know where he is?" Mary leaned forward, hopeful. "Unfortunately, no. John took precautions so that not even I would know his whereabouts, for everyone's safety." Mary felt the frustration grow. "What safety? What exactly are we talking about? I found documents, Mr. Johnson, debts, threats, shell companies. What did John get involved in?" The lawyer was silent for a long moment, studying Mary. Finally, he spoke. "Ms. Brown, how much do you really want to know? Sometimes ignorance is bliss." "Ignorance almost made me marry a man I apparently didn't really know," Mary retorted, her voice trembling with emotion. "I need to know the truth, no matter how painful it is." Mr. Johnson nodded slowly. "Very well. John got involved with dangerous people. It started as an apparently harmless investment. Horizon Enterprises promised quick and high returns. John saw an opportunity to secure a comfortable future for both of you. But it wasn't a legitimate investment, Mary concluded. No, it was a money laundering scheme connected to an international trafficking network. When John realized the true nature of the business, he tried to get out. But they wouldn't let him, Mary completed, feeling a knot in her stomach. Exactly. They threatened John. They threatened you. The only way out he saw was to gather as much evidence as possible and then disappear, hoping to protect you. Mary processed the information, her mind spinning. So all those documents I found are evidence? Mr. Johnson confirmed. Evidence that can bring down an entire criminal organization. That's why John is so valuable to them now, and why you are in danger. A shiver ran down Mary's spine. What should I do? The lawyer stood up, walking to the window. The safest thing would be for you to disappear as well. I can arrange... No, Mary interrupted him, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. I'm not going to run. I'm going to find John and end this. Mr. Johnson turned, a mix of admiration and concern on his face. It's dangerous, Mrs. Brown. These people won't hesitate to hurt you. I know, but I can't just abandon John. He did all this to protect me. Now it's my turn to protect him. The lawyer watched her for a long moment before nodding. You are brave, Mrs. Brown. John was right about you. He walked to a safe hidden behind a painting and took out an envelope. Here, these are the details John left with me, in case something happened. Names, locations, dates. Use them wisely. Mary took the envelope with trembling hands. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, A sudden sound interrupted her. Heavy footsteps in the hallway, loud voices. Mr. Johnson paled. Quick, he whispered, pushing Mary toward a side door. My private bathroom. Lock yourself in and don't make a sound. Mary had barely closed the door when she heard the main office door being violently opened. Mr. Johnson, a deep, threatening voice echoed. We have matters to discuss. From the bathroom, Mary listened to the muffled conversation. Her heart pounded in her chest. Who were these men? What did they want with Mr. Johnson? After what felt like an eternity, the men left. Mary waited a few more minutes before cautiously emerging. Mr. Johnson was sitting in his chair, his face pale and sweaty. You need to go, now, he said urgently. They know you are here. It's not safe. Mary nodded, grabbing her bag and the envelope. And you? Don't worry about me. Go, and be careful. Trust no one. With one last grateful look, Mary hurried out of the office. As she descended in the elevator, her mind raced. The danger was real, closer than she had imagined. Outside the building, Mary looked around, paranoia taking over. Every face seemed suspicious, every car a potential threat. She needed a plan, and quickly. With hurried steps, Mary blended into the crowd on the sidewalk, her heart beating in time with her footsteps on the pavement. The search for John and the truth was just beginning, and she knew the road ahead would be dangerous and unpredictable. But one thing was certain. There was no turning back. Mary was determined to uncover the mystery, no matter the cost. The game had begun, and she was playing to win. Mary hurried through the busy streets of downtown, her heart still racing after the tense encounter at Mr. Johnson's office. The envelope he had given her weighed heavily in her bag, filled with secrets and dangers. She needed a safe place to examine its contents, away from prying eyes and potential pursuers. After a few blocks, Mary spotted a discreet cafe, half hidden between an old bookstore and an antique shop. It seemed like the perfect place to blend into the crowd and think about her next move. Once inside, she ordered a strong coffee and settled at a table in the farthest corner of the establishment. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Inside, she found a series of meticulously organized documents. There was a list of names, some of which she recognized from the papers found in John's drawer, others completely new. Dates and locations were noted next to each name, along with astronomical amounts of money. One name in particular caught her attention, William Brown, the W.B. From the threatening message she had found among John's belongings. Next to his name, a note, Millennium Club, every Wednesday, 10 p.m. Mary checked her watch. It was Wednesday, just a few hours before 10 p.m. Her heart raced at the prospect of finally getting some concrete answers. Continuing to examine the documents, Mary found a map of the city with several points marked in red. She recognized some addresses: Mr. Johnson's office, the church where she was supposed to get married, and her parents' house. A chill ran down her spine. Why would her parents' house be marked on the map? Were they targets too? Or was there something else she didn't know? As Mary struggled to connect the dots, her phone vibrated. It was a message from Anna. "M, we need to talk. It's about Jay. Meet me at Central Park in 30 minutes. It's urgent." Mary hesitated. Trusting Anna meant going against John's advice to trust no one. But Anna had been her best friend for years. If anyone could help her understand what was happening, it would be her. Decided, Mary put the documents back in the envelope and left the cafe, taking care to check if she was being followed. Central Park wasn't far, and she arrived a few minutes before the scheduled time. Anna was already there, sitting on a bench, looking nervous and agitated. When she saw Mary, she quickly stood up. "Mary, thank God you came," Anna said, hugging her. "There's something you need to know about John." "What is it, Anna? What do you know?" Mary asked, her voice a mix of anxiety and hope. Anna looked around, as if afraid of being overheard. "John, he's not who you think he is. He's involved in something dangerous, Mary. Something that could hurt a lot of people." "I know about the debts, Anna." "About Horizon Enterprises," Mary said, watching her friend's reaction closely. Anna's eyes widened in surprise. You know? How?" "I found documents. John left clues. Anna, please, tell me what you know." "I need to find him." Anna seemed to hesitate for a moment before speaking. "Last night after you left the church, I heard Charles, John's brother, making a suspicious call. He mentioned something about a shipment arriving at the port next week. And he talked about you, Mary. He said you couldn't find out the truth." Mary felt the blood freeze in her veins. Charles was involved. How deep did this conspiracy go? "There's more," Anna continued, lowering her voice even further. "I think John didn't run away alone. I saw him getting into a car with a woman yesterday, just before the ceremony. I couldn't see who it was, but—" Anna's words were cut off by a loud noise, a gunshot. Instinctively, Mary threw herself to the ground, pulling Anna with her. People around them screamed and ran in all directions. "We have to get out of here," Mary shouted, pulling Anna by the hand. The two ran across the park's grass, seeking shelter behind trees and benches. Mary could hear heavy footsteps behind them, the labored breathing of someone in pursuit. Turning a corner, they found themselves on a busy street. Without thinking twice, Mary hailed a passing taxi. "Get in," she shouted to Anna, pushing her friend into the vehicle before getting in herself. "Where to?" the driver asked, startled by their urgency. "Just drive," Mary ordered, looking frantically out the rear window. As the taxi sped away from the park, Mary tried to calm her breathing and organize her thoughts. Who had shot at them? Were they the same men who had invaded Mr. Johnson's office? "Mary," Anna whispered, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" Mary looked at her friend, seeing the fear in her eyes. She wanted to tell her everything, to share the burden of what she had discovered, but John's words echoed in her mind. "Trust no one." "I don't know, Anna," Mary lied, hating herself for it. "But we need to separate. It's not safe for us to be together." Anna nodded, still trembling. "Yes, where are you going?" Mary thought of the Millennium Club and the possibility of finding William Brown and finally getting some answers. It was risky, but she was running out of options. "It's better if you don't know," Mary replied. "The less you know, the safer you'll be." The taxi stopped at a busy intersection. The taxi. Mary gave the driver some bills, much more than the fare was worth. "Anna, take another taxi and go home. Lock yourself in and don't open the door for anyone. I'll call you when it's safe." Before Anna could protest, Mary stepped out of the vehicle and merged into the throng of pedestrians crossing the street. Alone again, Mary checked her watch. She still had a few hours before the meeting at the Millennium Club. enough time to prepare and perhaps find out more about the mysterious woman Anna had mentioned. As she walked, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that each step was taking her deeper into a labyrinth of lies and danger. The city she once knew as her home now felt like a minefield, full of hidden threats and uncertain allies. But one thing was clear: there was no turning back. If she wanted to find John and uncover the truth, she would have to dive headfirst into this dark world of creditors, conspirators, and secrets. With renewed determination, Mary headed to a nearby hotel. She needed a place to regroup, plan her next move, and above all, prepare for what could be the most dangerous encounter of her life at the Millennium Club. The night promised to be long, and Mary knew that before the sun rose again, her life could change forever. The Millennium Club was a monument to opulence and excess. Neon lights flickered on the facade, while a line of luxury cars stretched down the street. Mary, dressed in her best clothes and carefully applied makeup, felt out of place and exposed. At the entrance, a burly security guard eyed her. "Name?" "I'm on Augusto Ferreira's list," Mary said, praying it would work. After a tense moment, the guard nodded. "You can go in." Inside the club, it was a whirlwind of sounds and lights. On the dance floor, bodies moved in sync with the deafening music. In the VIP areas, men in suits spoke in low voices with stunning women. Mary moved cautiously, her eyes scanning every face for Augusto Ferreira. At the bar, she ordered a tonic water, needing to keep her head clear. "Mary, what are you doing here?" She turned, her heart skipping a beat. It was Charles, John's brother. "Charles, I just wanted to distract myself a bit," she lied. Charles's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "This isn't a place for you, Mary. Go home. Forget John. It's for your own good." Before Mary could respond, a heavy hand landed on her shoulder. "Miss Oliveira, Mr. Ferreira would like to see you." A burly security guard guided her through the club, up a staircase leading to a private mezzanine. There, seated on a leather sofa, was Augusto Ferreira. His face, though smiling, had eyes as cold as ice. "Mary Oliveira," Augusto said, his voice smooth but threatening. "What a pleasure to finally meet you." Mary sat down, her heart pounding. "How did you know I would be here?" Augusto smiled. "My dear, in this city, I know everything, especially when it comes to the abandoned bride of our dear John." "Where is he?" Mary asked, and unable to contain herself. "Straight to the point, I like that," Augusto laughed. "Unfortunately, I have no idea. Your fiancé has caused us a lot of trouble, you know. Disappeared with a considerable amount of money and information." "What kind of information?" Augusto leaned forward, his eyes fixed on hers. "The kind of information that can destroy empires, Miss Oliveira. The kind of information people would kill for or die for." Mary felt the fear growing inside her. "What do you want from me?" "Simple. I want you to find John, bring him back, along with everything he took." "And if I refuse?" Mary challenged, her voice trembling slightly. Augusto's smile widened, becoming almost predatory. "Let's just say it would be a shame if something happened to your parents, or your dear friend Anna." Mary felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "You wouldn't dare." "Don't test me, Miss Oliveira. You have 1 week. Find John, retrieve what is mine, and everyone walks away from this intact." With a gesture, Augusto dismissed her. The security guard escorted her out of the club. On the sidewalk, the cool night air seemed to bring Mary back to reality. Her mind spun with the implications of what had just happened. John was alive, but in danger, and now she and everyone she loved were too. Mary began to walk aimlessly, trying to process everything. The John she knew, or thought she knew, seemed more distant than ever. Who was he really? A criminal, a victim, or something in between? And what should she do now? Finding John seemed impossible if he didn't want to be found. How could she, a simple teacher, locate him in just 1 week? But doing nothing meant putting her parents' and Anna's lives at risk. As she walked through the dark streets, Mary felt the weight of loneliness. She couldn't tell anyone about this. Anyone could be an informant for Augusto. She was alone in this battle against a powerful and ruthless enemy, But amid the fear and confusion, Mary felt something else growing inside her: determination. She would find John, uncover the truth, and protect those she loved. She would not be an easy pawn in Augusto Ferreira's game. With firm steps, Mary headed back to her hotel. She had work to do. Time was running out, and she couldn't afford to waste a single minute. The hunt began now. The sun had barely risen when Mary woke up, her restless sleep interrupted by nightmares in which John, her parents, and Anna were in constant danger. Looking at the clock, she saw it was only 5:30 in the morning. She knew she wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. With a heavy sigh, she got up and went straight to the small desk in the hotel room, where she had spread out all the documents she had found in John's drawer. 7 days. That was all the time Augusto Ferreira had given her to find John and retrieve the information he had taken. An impossible task. As she examined the papers for the umpteenth time, her eyes fell on an old receipt, almost hidden among the other documents. It was from a small cafe in the neighboring city, dated 3 years ago. The name of the establishment made her pause. Vaz Cafe. Intrigued, Mary turned on her laptop and began to search. The Vaz Cafe still existed, managed by a woman named Luciana Vaz. The photos showed an attractive woman in her 30s, with dark hair and piercing eyes. Further research revealed something even more surprising. Luciana Vaz had studied at the same university as John at the same time. They even appeared together in an old university newspaper photo, both part of the chess club. Mary felt a knot in her stomach. John had never mentioned Luciana. He had never talked about this cafe or his time at university with her. What else was he hiding? Determined to find out more, Mary decided that her next stop would be the Vaz Cafe. It was risky, but she was running out of options and time. Before leaving, however, she knew she needed to talk to Anna. Picking up the phone, she dialed her friend's number. "Mary, my God, where are you? I'm so worried." Anna's voice sounded relieved. "I'm fine, Anna. I just needed to sort some things out," Mary replied, trying to sound calm. "Listen, are you safe? Has anyone strange approached you?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "No, nothing strange. But Mary, what's happening? First John disappears, then that shooting in the park. I'm scared." Mary closed her eyes, feeling the weight of guilt. She wanted to tell Anna everything, to share the burden she carried, but the less her friend knew, the safer she would be. "Anna, trust me. I'm handling it. Just stay home, okay? And if anything suspicious happens, anything at all, call me immediately." After hanging up, Mary gathered her things and left the hotel. The Vaz Cafe was an hour away, and every minute of the taxi ride was filled with theories and possibilities about what she might discover. The Vaz Cafe was a charming establishment, with rustic wooden tables and the unmistakable aroma of freshly ground coffee in the air. As soon as Mary entered, her eyes were drawn to the counter, where Luciana Vaz was serving a customer. Luciana was even more impressive in person. Her movements were graceful, but there was something in her posture that suggested more than just a cafe owner. "Can I help you?" Luciana's soft voice surprised Mary, who hadn't noticed that the woman was now standing in front of her. Yes. A cappuccino, please," Mary stammered, trying to maintain her composure. As Luciana prepared the order, Mary watched her closely, looking for any sign of recognition or nervousness, but Luciana's face remained impassive. "Here you go," Luciana said, placing the cup on the table. Then, to Mary's surprise, she sat down across from her. "Now, why don't you tell me why you're really here, Mary?" The shock must have been evident on Mary's face, because Luciana smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, yes, I know who you are, the abandoned bride. The question is, do you know who I am?" Mary swallowed hard. "You studied with John. You were close." Luciana let out a bitter laugh. "Close? We could have been, but John was always too ambitious, always wanting more. That's what got him into this mess, you know." "What mess? What do you know about his disappearance?" Mary asked, leaning forward. Luciana's eyes narrowed. "What do I know? I know John got involved with the wrong people. I know he took something that didn't belong to him. And I know you're in danger just by sitting here talking to me." Mary felt a shiver run down her spine. "Please, I need to find him. There are dangerous people after him, and me." Luciana studied her for a long moment. "Augusto Ferreira, right? He's already found you." Mary nodded, surprised. "How do you—" "Let's just say I have my own contacts," Luciana replied enigmatically. Then, lowering her voice, she continued, "Listen, Mary, John is not the man you think he is. There are things about him, about his past, that you can't even imagine." "Then tell me," Mary pleaded. "I need to know the truth." Luciana looked around, as if fearing being overheard. "Not here, it's too dangerous. Meet me tonight at the old warehouse near the port. At 10 p.m. I'll tell you everything I know about John and what he's really involved in." With that, Luciana abruptly stood up and returned to the counter, leaving Mary with more questions than answers. Leaving the cafe, Mary felt her head spinning. John's past seemed increasingly nebulous, full of secrets and possible betrayals. Who was the real John, the man she loved and almost married, or someone completely different? As she walked back to the hotel, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that she was getting closer to a truth that could change everything. The meeting with Luciana that night promised to reveal long-buried secrets, but one doubt persisted. Could she trust Luciana, or was she walking straight into a trap? As the sun set on the horizon, Mary knew that the next few hours would be crucial. The past was about to be unearthed, and she could only hope to be prepared for whatever came to light. The old warehouse at the port loomed like a threatening shadow against the night sky. Mary checked her watch, 9:55 p.m. She was early for the meeting with Luciana, but her anxiety wouldn't let her wait any longer. The salty sea air mixed with the smell of rust and oil. In the distance, the sound of cargo ships and the occasional cry of seagulls broke the night's silence. Mary wondered if she was making a colossal mistake by trusting Luciana. As she approached the warehouse entrance, a movement in the shadows made her freeze. "Mary!" a familiar voice called. It was Charles, John's brother, emerging from the darkness. "You shouldn't be here." Mary's heart raced. "Charles, what are you doing here?" "Protecting you," he replied, his face a mask of concern. "Luciana can't be trusted. She's playing both sides." Mary frowned. "How do you know about Luciana? How did you know I would be here?" Charles hesitated for a moment. "There's a lot you don't know, Mary. John. He got involved in something much bigger than we imagined." "Something dangerous? Then tell me," Mary exclaimed, frustration evident in her voice. "I'm tired of half-truths and secrets. Where is John? What is really happening?" Before Charles could respond, the sound of footsteps interrupted them. Luciana emerged from the shadows, her dark eyes assessing the scene before her. "I see we're not alone," Luciana commented, her voice cold. "Charles, you always had a habit of showing up at the most inconvenient times." "Luciana," Charles responded, tense. Still doing Augusto's dirty work, Mary looked from one to the other, confused and alarmed. "You two know each other. Can someone please tell me what is going on?" Luciana sighed, leaning against a nearby stack of crates. "It's a long and complicated story, Mary, but I think you deserve to know the truth. John is not the man you think he is." "Don't do this, Luciana," Charles warned, stepping forward. Ignoring him, Luciana continued. "John, Charles, and I met at university. We were close, but John was always ambitious. When Augusto Ferreira came along with a business proposal, John didn't hesitate." "What kind of business?" Mary asked, dreading the answer. "The illegal kind," Charles intervened. "Money laundering, mostly. But John didn't know what he was getting into. When he realized the extent of the operation, he wanted out. But it's not that simple to leave an organization like Augusto's," Luciana added. "John knew too much. He became a risk." Mary felt as if the ground was disappearing beneath her feet. "So the wedding, the abandonment, it was a facade," Charles confirmed. "A way to protect you while he tried to find a way out. But he took something," Luciana added, her eyes gleaming dangerously. "Information that could bring down not just Augusto, but powerful figures across the country." The ensuing silence was deafening. Mary tried to process everything she had heard. Her John, the man she thought she knew so well, was actually a criminal on the run. "Why are you telling me this now?" Mary finally asked, her voice trembling. "Because you're in danger," Charles replied. "Augusto thinks you know where John is. He won't stop until he gets what he wants." "And what do you want?" Mary asked, looking from Charles to Luciana. Luciana stepped forward. "We want what John took, the information. With it, we can negotiate our safety. And yours." Mary felt a wave of anger rise within her. "You think I know where he is? That I have this information? I was abandoned at the altar, left to deal with this mess alone." "But John must have left some clue," Charles insisted. "Find something only you would understand." Mary was about to deny it again when a thought struck her. The drawer, the documents, the map with marked locations. Could it be? There might be something, she admitted reluctantly. Luciana's eyes lit up with interest. "What? What did you find?" Before Mary could respond, the sound of tires screeching on the asphalt alerted them. Headlights illuminated the warehouse entrance. "Damn it!" Charles cursed. "It's Augusto's men. We have to get out of here, now." With no time to think, Mary found herself being pulled by Charles toward a side exit. Luciana followed closely behind. As they ran through the night, the sound of voices and footsteps echoed behind them. Mary could feel her heart pounding frantically, fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins. "This way," Charles shouted, pulling her into a narrow alley. The three squeezed behind a large dumpster, trying to control their ragged breathing. Mary could hear Augusto's men approaching, their deep voices echoing off the alley walls. "They can't find us," Luciana whispered, her face pale with fear. "If Augusto finds out we were talking to you—" "Quiet," Charles ordered, placing a finger over his lips. The seconds dragged on like hours. Mary could feel every beat of her heart, every drop of sweat trickling down her forehead. The footsteps drew closer, paused for an agonizing moment, and then slowly began to recede. When silence finally returned, Mary exhaled the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That was close," Charles murmured, cautiously peeking out from their hiding spot. "What do we do now?" Mary asked, her voice trembling. Luciana and Charles exchanged glances. "Now," Luciana said, "you tell us exactly what John left behind. It's our only chance to get out of this alive." Mary looked at both of them, feeling the weight of the night's revelations. Trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. But cornered between Augusto Ferreira and John's secrets, what choice did she have? With a heavy sigh, Mary began to speak, hoping she was making the right decision. The game had changed, and she was determined not to be just a pawn on someone else's board. The truth, no matter how painful, was her only hope of survival now. Charles's apartment was small and sparse, located in an inconspicuous part of the city. Mary sat on the worn-out sofa, while Luciana stood near the window, keeping watch. Charles locked the door and double-checked it before joining them. "I think we lost Augusto's men," he said, running a hand through his hair in a nervous gesture. "But we can't stay here for long," Mary nodded, her mind still reeling from the night's events. "All right, you wanted to know what John left behind? Well, there's a map." Lucy's eyes lit up with interest. "A map? What kind of map?" "Of the city," Mary explained, with several points marked in red. Some I recognized: Dr. Mendez's office, the church where we were supposed to get married, my parents' a house. Charles frowned. "Your parents' a house? That's strange. Are you sure there was nothing else?" Luciana pressed. "No annotations, no codes." Mary hesitated. There was something else, something she hadn't mentioned before out of fear and confusion. "Well, there was a sequence of numbers on the back of the map. I thought it might be a code, but it doesn't make sense to me." Charles and Luciana exchanged significant glances. "We need to see this map," Charles said finally. "And those numbers? It could be the key to finding John and the information he took." Mary bit her lip, unsure. Trusting them meant laying all her cards on the table, but what choice did she have? "All right," she agreed. "But first, I want to know more. How did you two get involved in this? And why would John trust you after everything?" Luciana sighed, moving away from the window to sit in a nearby chair. It's complicated, Mary. John and I, we had a history. In college, we were more than friends, but things changed when Augusto came into the picture. John always wanted more, Charles continued. More money, more power. Augusto offered that to him, and John took the bait. At first, it was just a few favors here and there. Soon it turned into something bigger. And you? Mary asked Charles. How did John's brother get involved in this? Charles lowered his gaze, shame evident on his face. I owed money, a lot of money. John, he tried to help me by getting more involved with Augusto. That's how things spiraled out of control. Mary processed the information, feeling a mix of anger and pity. And now? Why should I trust you? Because we want out of this as much as you do, Luciana replied. John has information that can bring down Augusto and his organization. With that, we could negotiate our freedom. But John doesn't trust you, Mary concluded. That's why he hid the information. Charles nodded. Exactly. He knew it was risky to trust any of us. But you, Mary, you were the only person he truly trusted. The weight of this revelation hit Mary like a ton of bricks. John had planned all of this, counting on her to decipher the clues he left behind. All right, she said finally. I'll get the map and the documents. But on one condition, we work together to find John and end this once and for all. No more secrets, no more lies. Luciana and Charles exchanged glances before agreeing. You're right, Luciana said. No more games. We're all in this together now. Mary stood up, determined. I'll go to my apartment to get the things. Meet me back here in an hour. Wait, Charles interrupted. It's too dangerous for you to go alone. I'll go with you. Mary hesitated but nodded. Trust was still fragile, but she knew she needed help. The journey to Mary's apartment was tense and silent. At every corner, every shadow, they expected to see Augusto's men, but miraculously, they arrived without incident. Inside the apartment, Mary went straight to the hiding place where she had stored the documents. As she gathered everything, Charles stood guard by the window. Mary, he called suddenly, his voice tense. We have company. She ran to the window and saw two men in suits standing near a dark car across the street. They were unmistakably Augusto's henchmen. Damn, Mary cursed under her breath. How did they find us? It doesn't matter now, Charles replied, pulling her away from the window. We need to get out of here. Is there a back way? Mary nodded, grabbing her bag with the documents. Through the fire escape. Let's go. They slipped quietly down the hallway to the window that led to the fire escape. Charles went first, helping Mary down. In the alley behind the building, they ran, the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. Behind them, they heard voices and the sound of a door being broken down. This way, Mary panted, pulling Charles into a labyrinth of alleys she knew well. After several minutes of frantic running, they finally stopped, hiding behind a large dumpster. The night's silence was broken only by their heavy breathing. I think we lost them, Charles whispered, peeking cautiously around. Mary nodded, still trying to catch her breath. She opened her bag, checking to make sure all the documents were still there. The map, the numbers, everything was safe. We need to get back to Luciana, Charles said. She must be worried. As they made their way back, taking indirect routes and staying in the shadows, Mary couldn't help but think of John. Where was he now? Was he safe? And what exactly did these documents contain that everyone was willing to risk so much for? One thing was certain. The answers were hidden in the lines of that map and that mysterious sequence of numbers. And Mary was determined to decipher them, no matter the cost. As the night wore on, Mary knew she was about to delve even deeper into John's dark world of secrets and conspiracies. But for the first time since it all began, she felt she was finally on the right path to discovering the truth. The plan was risky, but Mary knew she had no choice. With Augusto Ferreira's deadline approaching and the threat hanging over her loved ones, she needed to act. Charles and Luciana had reluctantly agreed to let her confront the creditors alone, while they searched for the book at her parents' house. Mary adjusted the hidden microphone inside her blouse, a precaution insisted upon by Charles. Remember? His voice sounded in her ear through the small earpiece. At the first sign of danger, get out of there. We'll be monitoring, She took a deep breath and entered the Millennium Club, her heart pounding in her chest. The place was almost empty that afternoon, very different from the frenetic atmosphere of her last visit. Augusto Ferreira awaited her in his private office, a cold smile on his face. "Miss Oliveira, what a pleasure to see you again. I hope you bring good news." Mary forced herself to maintain her composure. "Mr. Ferreira, I came to negotiate." One of Augusto's eyebrows arched. "Negotiate? Interesting. And what exactly do you have to offer?" "Information," Mary replied, trying to sound confident. "I know where John hid the documents you're looking for." Augusto's interest was immediate and palpable. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with greed. "Go on." Mary swallowed hard. "First, I want guarantees. My family, my friends, they all stay out of this. And John, he stays safe." Augusto laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "You are not in a position to make demands, my dear, but let's say I'm willing to listen." At that moment, the office door burst open. Two burly men entered, dragging a familiar figure between them. Mary's heart nearly stopped. It was Anna. "Your little friend here was caught snooping where she shouldn't," one of the men growled. Mary felt panic rise. "Anna, what are you doing here?" Anna, her face streaked with tears and a cut on her lip, looked at Mary with a mixture of fear and determination. I couldn't let you face this alone." "I'm sorry, Mary." Augusto stood up, his expression now a mask of controlled fury. "It seems we have a little trust problem here, Miss Oliveira. Perhaps I have been too patient with you." Mary felt the blood freeze in her veins. Everything was falling apart quickly. "Please, Mr. Ferreira, Anna has nothing to do with this. Let her go and I'll tell you everything you want to know." "Oh, but now things have changed," Augusto said, his voice dangerously soft. "You see, I don't like being deceived, and I have a feeling you were about to try and deceive me." He gestured to his men, who pushed Anna into a chair. "So, here is the new deal," Augusto continued. "You have exactly 1 hour to bring me the documents that John took. If you don't, well, let's just say your friend here will have a very unpleasant experience." Panic threatened to overwhelm Mary. She looked at Anna, seeing the terror in her friend's eyes. "Don't do it, Mary," Anna shouted. "No matter what happens to me, don't give him what he wants." One of Augusto's men slapped Anna, silencing her. Mary felt a wave of anger mixed with overwhelming despair. "Stop! I'll do whatever you want. Just don't hurt her." Augusto smiled, satisfied. "Good. The clock is ticking, Miss Oliveira. I suggest you hurry." With one last agonized look at Anna, Mary ran out of the office. Once outside the club, she activated the microphone. "Charles, Luciana, we have a problem. Anna is with Augusto. We need the book now." Charles's voice sounded tense in her ear. "We're on our way. Meet us at the rendezvous point in 20 minutes." Mary ran through the city streets, her mind a whirlwind of fear and determination. How had Anna gotten involved in this? And how could they save her without giving up the information that John had risked everything to protect? As she headed to the rendezvous point, Mary knew that the next decisions she made could cost not only her life but also that of her best friend. The confrontation with the creditors had turned into something much more dangerous than she could have imagined. With time running out and the stakes higher than ever, Mary prayed that the book contained the answers they needed. Otherwise, she feared this night would end in tragedy. Mary's heart raced as she hurried to the rendezvous point. The image of Anna, scared and hurt, wouldn't leave her mind. When she arrived at the designated spot, a dark alley behind an old abandoned cinema, Charles and Luciana were already there, tense expressions on their faces. "How did you get the book?" Mary asked, breathless. Charles nodded, handing her a worn volume. "A History of True Love," Mary read, her hands trembling as she touched the familiar cover. "We didn't have time to examine it," Luciana said. "What happened with Anna?" Quickly, Mary updated them on the situation at the Millennium Club. Charles and Luciana's faces paled as she described Augusto's threats. "We have less than 40 minutes, Mary concluded, frantically opening the book. "The information has to be here somewhere." The three began to flip through the pages, looking for anything unusual. Marginal notes, marked pages, any clue that John might have left. "Wait," Charles exclaimed suddenly. "Look at this." He pointed to a series of tiny numbers written at the bottom of several pages. Together they formed a sequence. They looked like coordinates, Luciana suggested. Mary grabbed her phone, ready to enter the numbers into an online map, when a familiar voice made her freeze. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The three turned abruptly. There, emerging from the shadows of the alley, was John. Mary felt her world spin. After days of anguish, searches, and danger, there he was, looking tired and worn, but alive. "John!" she exclaimed, a mix of relief and confusion in her voice. Where have you been?" John stepped forward, his eyes scanning the group cautiously. "We don't have much time." "Mary, you can't trust them," he said, pointing to Charles and Luciana. "What?" Mary asked, confused. "But they've been helping me find you." John shook his head sadly. "They've been working for Augusto. They always have." Charles and Luciana exchanged nervous glances, but didn't deny the accusation. "But there's more," John continued, his voice trembling. "So the truth is much worse than you can imagine, Mary. The real mastermind behind all this is your father." Mary felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "My father? No, that can't be true." "Unfortunately, it is," John said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Your father has been working with Augusto for years. He wanted to separate us, Mary. He knew I was finding out too much about his illegal activities." Memories flooded Mary's mind. The late-night calls her father received, the sudden business trips, the way he always seemed uncomfortable when John was around. "But why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Power and money," John replied bitterly. "Your father built an empire in the shadows, Mary. I was a threat to that. When I started putting the pieces together, he orchestrated all of this, my disappearance, the threats, everything, to keep me away from you and protect his secrets." Mary looked at Charles and Luciana, who remained silent, guilt evident on their faces. "Is it true?" she asked them. Luciana was the first to speak. "Yes. We were hired by your father to keep you occupied, to prevent you from discovering the truth. But things got out of control," Charles added. "Augusto has his own agenda. He wants the information John collected to bring down your father and take over." Mary felt her legs give way. John caught her, preventing her from falling. "And Anna?" she asked, suddenly remembering her friend in danger. "Part of the plan," John said softly. She also works for your father, Mary. She was planted in your life years ago to monitor you." It was too much to process. Her entire life, all her relationships, seemed to be an elaborate lie. "What do we do now?" she asked, feeling completely lost. John took the book from her hands. "The coordinates lead to a safe. There, I have all the evidence needed to expose your father and Augusto, but we need to act quickly." "Wait," Mary said, a sudden idea occurring to her. "If my father is behind all this, why did Augusto threaten my family?" "Because Augusto doesn't know your father is the boss," John explained. "Your father is a master at hiding in the shadows. Even Augusto is just a pawn in his larger game." Mary looked at Charles and Luciana. "And you? Whose side are you on now?" The two exchanged glances before Charles spoke. "We're tired of being manipulated. We want to end this as much as you do." John nodded reluctantly. "We'll need all the help we can get." "So sis, what's the plan?" Luciana asked. "First, we rescue Anna," Mary said firmly. "Even if she betrayed me, I can't leave her in Augusto's hands," John agreed. "And then we go to the safe. With this evidence, we can expose everything and end this once and for all." As the group prepared to leave, Mary couldn't help but feel a mix of determination and fear. Her world had been turned upside down, but one thing was certain. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. With one last look at John, the man she loved and who had risked everything to protect her, Mary left the alley, ready to face not only Augusto Ferreira, but also the man she had always believed to be her protector, her own father. The night promised to be long, and the revelations to come would change her life forever. But Mary was ready. It was time to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Her father's office was silent, the tension palpable in the air. Sitting behind his imposing mahogany desk, Mr. Oliveira seemed to have aged years in just a few hours. His face, usually confident and authoritative, now showed deep lines of worry and guilt. Mary, John, Charles, and Luciana stood before him, Anna sitting in a corner, her eyes red from crying. The operation to rescue her from the Millennium Club had been tense but successful, thanks to the surprise intervention of Mary's father. "So," Mary began, her voice trembling with contained emotion, "it's true. All of this was you." Her father sighed deeply, running a hand over his tired face. "Yes, Mary. I'm sorry. More than you can imagine." John stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Mary's shoulder. "Why? Why do all this?" Mr. Oliveira looked at John, a mix of respect and regret in his eyes. "At first, it was just business. Small diversions, nothing too serious. But then things grew. They got out of control. When I realized you were discovering the truth, John, I panicked. So you decided to separate us," Mary concluded, the hurt evident in her voice. Her father nodded sadly. I thought I was protecting you, Mary. But I was only protecting myself. And Augusto?" Charles asked. "How does he fit into all this?" "Augusto was my right-hand man," Mr. Oliveira explained, "but he got greedy, wanted more power. When John started investigating, I saw an opportunity to get rid of two problems at once." Mary felt a wave of nausea. "You used all of us. Anna, Charles, Luciana's, even Mum." Her father shook his head. "Your mother doesn't know anything. She's innocent in all this." A heavy silence fell over the room. Years of lies, manipulations, and betrayals hung in the air, almost tangible. It was John who finally broke the silence. "What happens now?" Mr. Oliveira slowly stood up, walking to the window. For a moment, he watched the city outside, the lights shining in the darkness. "Now," he said, turning to face them, "I fix this, or at least I try." He walked to a painting on the wall, removing it to reveal a hidden safe. With trembling fingers, he opened it, taking out a thick folder. "Here is everything," he said, handing the folder to John. "Records, transactions, names, everything you need to expose the entire operation." John took the folder, his eyes wide with surprise. "Why are you giving us this?" "Because it's time to pay for my mistakes," Mr. Oliveira replied. "I'm going to turn myself in to the authorities, confess everything." Mary felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Dad," he turned to her, his own eyes glistening. "Forgive me, Mary. I failed as a father, as a businessman, as a human being. But I want to do the right thing now, even if it means losing everything, including you." Mary stepped forward, embracing her father for the first time in years. It was a hug full of pain, regret, but also hope. "Mas, you won't lose me," she whispered. "I'm disappointed, hurt, but you're still my father." When they separated, Mr. Oliveira turned to John. "And you, John, I misjudged you. You proved to be a man of character, willing to sacrifice everything to protect my daughter. I'm sorry for everything I did to you both." John nodded, accepting the words. "What matters now is fixing things." In the following hours, they worked together. Mr. Oliveira made calls, transferred funds, prepared documents. With his help and the evidence John had collected, they had enough to bring down Augusto and dismantle the entire operation. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink, a new day was dawning, both literally and figuratively. Mary and John stood on the office balcony, watching the city wake up. "What happens to us now?" Mary asked softly. John took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "That's up to you, Mary. After all this, do you still want a future with me?" Mary looked at him, seeing not just the man she loved, but also the hero who had risked everything for her. "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "More than ever, but it will take time. To trust again, to heal." John nodded, understanding. "We have all the time in the world now. We can rebuild together." No more secrets this time. Inside the office, Charles and Luciana were talking quietly with Mr. Oliveira, discussing the next steps. Anna, still shaken but relieved, watched the scene with a mix of remorse and hope. Mary knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be investigations, possibly trials. Her family's reputation would be in tatters. But for the first time in days, she felt hope. "Let's go inside," John suggested gently. "We have a lot of work ahead." Mary nodded, taking one last look at the horizon. The new day brought with it the promise of redemption, of a fresh start. It wouldn't be easy, but they would face it together. As she walked back inside, Mary saw her family, both blood and chosen, gathered. Her father, repentant but determined to do the right thing. John, her pillar of strength. Charles and Luciana, who had chosen the right side in the end. And Anna, a friendship that, though shaken, still had a chance to heal. The process of reconciliation and healing would be long, but today was the first step. With love, forgiveness, and a new understanding, they would embark on this journey together. Mary took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They had a second chance, and this time they would make it count.